This day in sports history. It's June 7th, and on this day in 1998, it was the worst beatdown in an NBA Finals game. This was Game 3 of the '98 Finals, featuring the Chicago Bulls and the Utah Jazz in a rematch of the '97 Finals that the Bulls had won in 6 games. Now, their average margin of victory in '97 was 5 points in their 4 wins. In the '98 series, if you exclude this game, the average margin of victory for the Bulls was just a little over 3 points a game, which makes the game they played on this day an outlier. The series was tied at a game apiece, and it shifted back to Chicago for Games 3, 4, and 5. Jazz coach Jerry Sloan started Greg Ostertag in place of usual starting center Greg Foster in this one. One problem, though, Ostertag was having some contact lens issues prior to tip-off, and apparently he wasn't seeing too well. Not sure if contact lens issues are contagious, but apparently nobody wearing a Utah jersey, outside of Karl Malone, was seeing very clearly that night. Malone knocked down his first 6 shots to give Utah the early lead, and with the Bulls not able to find the bucket on their end, this game had the feel of a Utah runaway. The first quarter was pretty dismal outside of Malone's performance. Neither team shot the ball well. There were a combined 6 turnovers in the first 12 minutes, and it was 17-14 Bulls at the end of it. Chicago got the engine revving in the second quarter, though, causing 8 Jazz turnovers and turning those into points on the other end. They had an 18-point lead by the time the half ended. Things continued to go south for the Jazz in the second half. Utah hit only 27% of their shots in the third quarter, and an even worse 19% of their shots in the fourth quarter. Sloan sat his starters in the fourth, and the reserves only managed 9 points in the fourth quarter. The Bulls' combo of Steve Kerr and Judd Buechler outscored the Jazz in the fourth quarter themselves, hitting 4 of 5 from three-point range. When the game reached its merciful end, Chicago had beaten Utah 96-54. The 42-point margin of victory was an NBA Finals record, and it still stands today. The Jazz's 54 points were the fewest in a Finals game in the shot clock era, and the 9 points they managed to score in the fourth set the NBA mark for fewest scored in a quarter in an NBA Finals game. It was a complete anomaly. The following 3 games in the series would be decided by a combined 7 points. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. On this day in 1995, Kenny Smith hit big shot after big shot, and Akeem the Dream made the Rockets' dreams come true. But most people remember this game for a series of unfortunate events that happened to Orlando's Nick Anderson instead. This was Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Orlando Magic were the top seed in the East against the surprising Houston Rockets, who had finished as the 6th best team in the West. The Rockets were able to beat the 3-seed Utah Jazz in round 1, second-seeded Phoenix in the second round, and the top seed in the West, the San Antonio Spurs, in the Western Conference Finals to advance to this point. The Magic, with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, were the new kids on the block. They were the future of the NBA, ready to eclipse the Chicago Bulls and become the torchbearers for the Eastern Conference. The Magic came out firing in this one, opening up a double-digit lead early and built it to as many as 20 in the second quarter. But the Rockets fought back with some great outside shooting in the second half by Kenny Jet Smith.
From the arena in Orlando, the Magic leading by as many as 20. Kenny Smith continues to hit from downtown. That's his 5th, and the Rockets have taken over. They now lead by 6.
But this game really came down to what happened on the free throw line in the closing seconds. The Magic led 110-107 when Nick Anderson was fouled with 10 seconds left in the game, sending him to the line to shoot a pair. Anderson had played a great game up to this point. He'd scored 22, hitting 4 of 7 three-point attempts, and he was a guy that you didn't mind having on the line in the fourth quarter. During the year, he'd been a dependable 70% free throw shooter. However, things went off the rails a good bit in the final seconds. Anderson missed both free throws and missed them badly. The second miss, though, was so bad that it was actually good. It rebounded hard off the front iron, and Houston's Mario Elie could not come up with the rebound. Instead, it landed right back into the hands of Nick Anderson, who was fouled again, putting him back on the line for another pair of free throws. All he needed to do was make one, and this game would be on ice. He overcompensated on the next one, though, and he hit the back of the iron. He could not believe it, so much so that a smile crept onto his face, complete disbelief at what was happening. But surely he wouldn't miss the fourth one.
And he misses 4 straight. The Rockets take a timeout with 5 6/10 seconds remaining.
4 straight free throws to put the game away, and 4 straight misses. Still down 3, the Rockets needed another long-range shot. And Kenny Smith said, "Yeah, I know a guy."
All right, Elie throws it to Smith looking for the 3. He's been on fire and hits. He's tied the game at 110 with 1 6/10 seconds remaining. And that is an NBA Finals record for Kenny Smith. That's his 7th from downtown.
The Magic could not find the game winner on the other end, and it went to overtime. After Dennis Scott drilled a 3 with 5.5 seconds in the OT, it was tied again. But that left a lot of time for the dream of a 20-point comeback to become a reality.
Usually for the man underneath the basket, Drexler. Drexler puts the ball on Anderson. The finger roll, the tip by Arie. The Rockets lead 3/10 of a second remaining and a timeout called.
It was a great game and a stunning comeback for the Rockets. The Magic never recovered from this defeat. They were swept in the finals, and the Magic carpet ride never materialized in Orlando. On this day in 1993, Drazen Petrović was killed in a car accident. Before Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic, before Peja Stojakovic and Toni Kukoc, there was Drazen Petrović, a 6'5" shooter who was a stone-cold assassin on the basketball court. He wasn't the first Eastern European to play in the NBA, but he was one of the earliest to have success in the league. And his success led to other NBA teams looking in that part of the world for talent. Now, that's not to say that Kukoc or Stojakovic would not have made it to the States without Petro paving the way, but the manner in which he played opened that door just a little bit wider. Petrović was drafted by the Portland Trail Blazers in 1986, but at the time, he really wasn't interested in playing in the NBA. He played in his native Yugoslavia before moving over to the Spanish League to play for Real Madrid. He was making more money in Europe than he would in the NBA, and he was the star. When he finally made the move to Portland in '89, he was playing on a roster with guys like Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, and Danny Young. He was underutilized, and instead of being allowed to create his own shots like he was used to doing, the offensive system in Portland forced him to be more of a static three-point shooter. It wasn't until he went to the New Jersey Nets the following year that he really began to blossom. His game was a lot more dynamic than just being a stand-and-shoot option. He became one of the most frustrating guys to guard in the league. Reggie Miller was one of those guys tasked with guarding him whenever the Pacers played the Nets.
Petrović had the quickest release I've ever seen. And what made him so unique is I prided myself on working off screens and working off the big men coming off. Yeah. He was just as good. And we talk about footwork, arguably one of the best guys with that footwork at the shooting range.
In what turned out to be his final season in the NBA, Draz was 11th in the league in points per game with 22 and was third in three-point field goal percentage, knocking down 45% of his triples. And yet he was not an all-star that year and only third-team All-NBA. He felt he deserved more respect for his game, which led him to consider going back to Europe. On this day, he was in Germany. He actually canceled a flight he had booked to Zagreb, Croatia, choosing instead to drive with his girlfriend and another woman back home. He had two Greek teams offering him a lot of money to play basketball for the next 3 years, and he had a lot to consider. Petrović was asleep in the front passenger seat with his Hungarian girlfriend at the wheel. Driving along the Autobahn at a legal 110 miles per hour, she was unaware and could not see until it was too late that a tractor-trailer that had been traveling in the opposite direction had veered off into the median to avoid a stopped car. The truck slammed through the median and came to rest across 3 lanes of traffic. When the Volkswagen they were in hit that truck, Petrović was thrown from the car and suffered massive head trauma and died at the scene. Drazen Petrović was 28 years old. On this day in 1997, it was the Indy Racing League's first run at Texas Motor Speedway, and this one ended in controversy and a fight in Victory Circle. The problems started around lap 140 when the transponders on several of the race cars, including Arie Luyendyk's number 5 car, had intermittent problems. In essence, they were not communicating with the scoring system that they had completed a lap. Luyendyk's position on the track did not change, but on the scoring tree, he dropped out of the top 10. At lap 190 of 200, Tony Stewart, an IRL rookie, was leading the race, well ahead of what was thought to be second-place Billy Boat. Luyendyk was behind Stewart and charging hard. Stewart was told that Arie was a lap down, and he waved him by. When Stewart crossed the start-finish line with 2 laps to go, though, his engine blew up.
Tony Stewart certainly at this moment looks like he's on.
Oh, and there is exactly what they worried about. Stewart, the engine lets go. He catches the wall. Billy Boat will take the lead.
But Billy hasn't get by him yet. Unbelievable.
Just exactly what we feared.
That meant that the race would finish under caution. Boat and his teammate Davey Hamilton led the parade around the racetrack, giving Texan A.J. Foyt an apparent 1-2 finish as the team owner. Boat was directed into Victory Circle, interviews were done, champagne was popped and poured. But Arie Luyendyk knew something was wrong. He knew that there was a problem. He went looking for an IRL official to explain the situation in Victory Circle. Boat's team, and especially Foyt, did not appreciate Luyendyk crashing the party.
Left your lap, 20 laps in the end, left your lap. Then I count.
That smack you heard was Foyt delivering a backhanded slap to Luyendyk's head, and then he got pushed into a flower bed. The official scorers of the race were from USAC, and they also knew they had a problem, and they were busy trying to sort it out while the fight was going on in Victory Circle. But it wasn't until the early morning hours after watching the replay of the race that they realized Arie Luyendyk was right, and he had indeed won the race. The scoring was adjusted. Luyendyk awarded the win and the trophy in an empty Victory Circle the following day. Foyt received a $20,000 fine for the slap, and Luyendyk had to give back $14,000 of his winner's check for what the IRL called unsportsmanlike conduct. Although, if you're right, how is it unsportsmanlike? Anyway, the Indy Racing League sacked USAC after this race, sanctioning and scoring their own events from that point forward. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. During the Middle Ages, which ran from 500 CE to around 1500 CE, animals were routinely put on trial. Now, these were not farcical. Instead, they were carried out like human trials were conducted. Many involved pigs and their penchant for, well, if you've seen the movie Snatch, you know what I'm talking about, but
What you talking about, Willis?
one such trial in the late 1400s involved a sow and her piglets. The mother was convicted of the death of a 5-year-old and was put to death, but it couldn't be proven that her piglets were involved, and so they were spared. The parents of the child were only chastised for a little bit of negligence. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.